Hello, it's John Heaton and welcome to a lovely sunny day here in Budapest. First video outside of the year, even though we're at the end of May, so a bit late. The spring struck summer this year, but very welcome. And I'm going to review this album by Elton John now, released on the 13th of May 1980, which was actually my 16th birthday. Which got me thinking what else had happened on my birthday. I think I mentioned on my channel, this is a bit of an aside, but the Blue Album balcony picture was taken on my 5th birthday. The Pope was shot on my 17th birthday, 1981. And I share a birthday with Stevie Wonder and Sir Arthur Sullivan from Gilbert and Sullivan, so that's not too shabby. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. So I picked this up in Houston, this album. I'd had it before, but for some reason I think I picked it up secondhand and it didn't have the inner sleeve, which is this. And I think it was on the same label. It didn't have the lyric sheet either, or the musician credits, which is always nice to have. So I saw it in Houston and it wasn't expensive. It must be said it's not one of Elton's best covers. In fact, in the 80s he came up with a succession of pretty dreadful covers. Too Low for Zero was even worse than this, I seem to remember. But it's not terrible. It's just when you compare it to Captain Fantastic or Yellow Brick Road, or the nice painting on the front of Blue Moves, this is nothing really. But anyway, as I say, nice to have the inners, which is always essential, I think, when you're picking up second-hand records. Sometimes you don't know if there's an inner, so you have to do a bit of research. Anyway, so this album is pretty decent, and I think the first thing to say, it was Elton fans breathed a collective sigh of relief when it came out, because Victim of Love was really quite terrible. Just an album of disco songs not written by Elton, where he just sang and didn't play piano or anything. And so when this album came out, it was a huge relief that he was back to his normal, what he does best, which is writing ballads and rockers. And it's interesting how here Boney Topan makes a return. He hadn't been working with Elton since Blue Moves, but he makes a return. But he shares the songwriting, the lyric writing duties with Gary Osborne, who was the main collaborator on A Single Man. And also Tom Robinson co-writes a couple of tracks on here, and Judy Zook even co-writes one. So Elton is hedging his bets as far as lyric support, but that's not a bad thing. And I know Gary Osborne's lyrics come in for a lot of stick for being a little bit simplistic or sentimental compared to the imagery of Boney Topan, but I think he does a decent job on this, on Single Man and on this album. And actually I think Topan is not on great form, with one exception. The other songs that he co-writes are not among his best, and not among Elton's best musically. So this album was recorded in, I think it's called Sugarbear Studios down in Nice, somewhere near Nice in France. And I was looking up, because I remembered the name of that studio as being where Pink Floyd The Wall recorded their classic album, in that studio. And then I did a bit of research, and I also found out that Dave Gilmour recorded his first solo album there, as did Rick Wright, Wet Dream. And then Queen recorded Jazz there, around about the same time as this, maybe a bit before, a year before or so. Kate Bush recorded Lionheart. Ringo Starr recorded Stop and Smell the Roses, with Paul McCartney guesting, along with Lawrence Juba. Van Morrison recorded an album here, Stevie Nicks and Jim Capaldi, to name a few others. So that was quite interesting. So the album kicks off with Chasing the Crown, which I think is not a particularly distinguished Taupin John number. It's maybe good to see the team back together, but they've done a lot better than this. Both musically and lyrically, it's just not very strong. And but the album really takes off for me with Little Genie, the second song. It was a huge hit, particularly in America, I think. Lyrics by Gary Osborne. They may be simple, but they work well. especially the backing vocals at the end. You stepped into my life from a bad dream, making the life that I had seem suddenly shiny and new. Genie, I'm so in love with you. I really like this song. It's sentimental, but Elton's melody is among his best, and it's just a trademark Elton ballad song, and I love it. Then we've got Toriel Eloquence, co-written with Tom Robinson, who was famous for a couple of hits in the late 70s, 2468 Motorway and Sing If You're Glad to Be Gay. I think those were his biggest hits in Britain. I'm not sure how well he did in the States, but good to see him collaborating with Elton, and this is a decent song with quite a rousing chorus. Nothing brilliant, but not bad at all. And then the side one finishes with another slightly below par Torpin John song, Two Rooms at the End of the World, and this even ended up as the title track of an album of Elton John tributes recorded by other artists, which is worth checking out, by the way, if only to hear Sinead O'Connor's brilliant version of Sacrifice. But this song, it's nothing special. In fact, it's fairly forgettable. So I'm going to move straight on to one of the highlights of the album, which is the opening song of side 2, White Lady, White Powder, which is an unapologetic homage to the drug cocaine. And I'm sure Elton probably a little bit embarrassed about it now, looking back on it, but at the time he was a heavy user, as were many rock stars of his contemporaries. And it's interesting to see on backing vocals in this track no less than 3 members of the Eagles. So that, I don't know what that probably tells you something about the Eagles' liking for the drug cocaine as well. Sorry about the plane, I have got a microphone but it's loud. So I like that song, it's really good rocker. Elton sings it well, good piano. Dee Murray is back on bass duties, by the way. Interesting to see the musicians on this album. Alvin Taylor on drums, been the drummer on 33 and a Third for George. Good to see him. Steve Lukather on guitar he was originally from Toto, the group Toto, and he played on albums like Thriller for Michael Jackson, so a very distinguished musician. Reggie McBride is on bass duties for the most part, although Dee Murray is on a couple of tracks. Nigel Olsson is on a couple of tracks. It's good to see him back. And then on Dear God, the next track, Bruce Johnston from the Beach Boys is arranging the harmony vocals, and you'll notice they're very Beach Boys-esque, and they really bring the song to life. They were overdubbed onto the song, I think, in LA a few months after. So this basic tracks for this album were recorded in August 79 at Sugarbear, and then a couple of overdubs done later. Dear God, I think, is a decent lyric from Gary Osborne, and he'd done a similar song on Blue Moves. I can't remember what it was called. Is there a God in heaven? What's he waiting for? So a similar type of lyric, but that lyric was written by Bernie Taupin, and this is by Gary. So it's a decent song, and as I say, good harmony vocals, or choral vocal section it's called in the credits. Then you got Never Gonna Fall in Love Again, which is a stronger co-write with Tom Robinson. Could have been a single, this one. It's a really nice ballad, and he's not quite being as open as he could be, because in this song he talks about having a problem that she's pretty and she's 5'10", so he's not talking openly about his being homosexual, although he had come out in '76 as saying he was bisexual, so not sure why. And Tom Robinson's also gay, so I'm not sure why they included the she in the lyric here, but anyway, it's a really nice song and top notch. And Take Me Back is the last collaboration with Gary Osborne. It's a catchy number, I like it. Nothing to write home about particularly as a song, but inoffensive. Then we've got the closer, Give Me the Love, which is another kind of indistinguished song. Judy Zook may have co-written it, I'm not sure if she wrote the words or something, but Elton can't really bring the words to life with any kind of memorable tune, and it's fairly forgettable. So I'd say this album is got highlights for sure, particularly Little Genie, Dear God, White Lady, White Powder, Never Gonna Fall in Love Again. Those are the best tracks, and there's a couple of other nice ones, but there's a few sort of ones which are not really up to par, and that was not the case with The Single Man, which was very consistent. And after this album, he'd struggled to maintain any kind of continuity through an album for many, many years. So, but this album came out in 1980. I think John Lennon would have heard it, maybe wouldn't have been massively impressed because it's not breaking new ground, but it's as I said at the beginning, it's a tremendous relief after Victim of Love, and he was to do a lot worse than this album, despite the slightly dodgy cover artwork. And by the way, 21 at 33 is supposed to mean his 21st album at the age of 33. In effect, he'd only released 14, but he was including live albums and compilations and soundtracks and one EP, I think, to make up the count to 21. But anyway, that was just a bit of info on the title there. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.